research. Those mean that we have a program where usually two that students apply. It's a competitive program, and they do a fifth year. During that fifth year, there's no tuition in the fifth year. In fact, there's a small stipend, and they're actually junior faculty. They help teach both hands-on one-on-one as well as lecture-style teaching, and so they get the academic piece added into their CV when they move forward. 50% of our graduates or more go into primary care. We have exceedingly high match rates, especially within California. Last number I saw is Touro is 2% of the match in California, and Touro is 20% of the successful matches in California. That shows you that we have a pretty big footprint. And we have above average national board scores. So I think we do a good job of preparing our students and getting them onto their careers as osteopathic physicians. We'll take a minute and talk about what DOs do. And I specifically showed this slide with the rod the one snake, if you will. Oftentimes medicine is thought of as the two snakes, and then oftentimes allopathic medicine or MDs use the two snakes. But the rod is actually one snake, and that is what the osteopathic physicians use. DOs are fully licensed, unrestricted, with no restrictions on their license in all 50 states and many other countries. The training is focused at identifying health. If you think about those words, you'll understand it's not anybody, what's been said to me many times is anybody can identify disease, but identifying health and helping a patient try and maintain health is really important. And so we really focus a lot of our training on that. Osteopathic physicians are known for primarily going into primary care, family medicine, general internal medicine, and pediatrics, but they go into everything, every specialty known, there are DOs in it. Other high things for DOs are emergency medicine, obstetrics and gynecology, all the various surgical specialties, and psychiatry. Anything available to an allopathic physician is available to an osteopathic physician. And in California, it's actually against the law to not allow osteopathic physicians to participate. We also learn something called osteopathic manipulative treatment or medicine, referred to as either OMT or OMM. And if you do a specialty in that, you do a specialty in neuromuscular medicine and osteopathic manipulative medicine, or NMM, OMM. And osteopathic physicians are known for treating the individual patient in their entirety, including all the factors that may influence a patient's health outcomes. Mind, body, spirit, patient's educational background, financial background, do they live in a food desert? There's a variety, have they been recipients of trauma? Now, please don't think that I'm saying allopathic physicians don't consider that. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it is a hallmark of osteopathic training. It is something we focus on. I have plenty of allopathic friends who are extremely osteopathic, and I tell them that to their face. Boy, you could be a DO, and they love laughing and smiling. There are several allopathic physicians who are faculty on staff at Touro, and several of them have said, I didn't know about osteopathic medicine when I was applying, because I think if I would have, I might have chosen to become a DO. So we are a fantastically kept secret that currently still graduates 25% of all physicians in this country. So if you think about that, we've grown considerably in the 140 years or so that we've been in existence. It's important, by the way, to know what a DO does if you're going to apply to an osteopathic medical school. It's important to not give what I call the Wikipedia definition. Nothing drives us crazy than to hear you use the word holistic about 25 times in your interview, because that's the only word you know to describe it. So it's something to work with your friends and your classmates, meet people at Touro virtually, in person, if we have in-person events, whatever, and learn a little bit about it. If you can shadow a DO, better yet. Every DO probably has a slightly different explanation about what makes us different. But if you actually listened to them all, you'd find some pretty common words, and that we actually all feel we're very similar. And we know that our ability to touch a patient emotionally, verbally, physically, as we use our hands in our diagnosis and our treatment, is important. And we believe that's part of what leads our physicians more into some of the primary care specialties. But again, we have matches this past year in neurosurgery, ophthalmology, all the very subspecialties that some people may be interested in. Any questions up to this point? Okay. Some of the pitfalls, do's and don'ts, and I like sharing these because I think they're important. Please be careful if you're copying and pasting. I can't tell you, and Lynn will smile because she's heard me complain about it, the number of times I've read an application that says, and I want to be an MD because. The least you could do is make sure that it says DO if you're applying to an osteopathic medical school. So be careful. Copying and pasting can bite you back. Why do you want to be a physician? Your personal statement. I appreciate that most people have something that happened in their life that may have influenced this decision. But everybody has a sick family member or someone who passed away, and that's not why you're willing to turn your life to a profession that needs to be a passion, because you will miss things in your life. You will miss birthdays and anniversaries and weddings and funerals. You will miss your child's first recital because there was an emergency at the hospital. You will work some long hours. And that's part of being a physician. And so you want to have a passion. And just because Aunt Susie had lupus is not why you want to be a physician. Now, if you want to be a physician because Aunt Susie didn't speak English and she had to learn to navigate this complex system in the United States that we call medical care, and you want to be able to help people access medical care, and so you have this sort of global perspective, and it started with your interest in helping your aunt, there's a story, but not just because you had someone in your family who was sick. So remember that that's not the main reason, and think about what really makes you want to take this passion and direct it to helping others, because that's really what we want to hear. Again, as I said earlier, why you want to be a DO, no more than the Wikipedia. Avoid the common sayings, holistic and mind, body, spirit. Instead, give me examples. Tell me about a time you shadowed a physician and the physician got into a conversation with the patient and realized that the patient just had a death in their family, and that's why they're really not taking their medicine. And it was the doctor exploring that and helping them to understand how grief is playing a role in their taking their medicine properly, and watching that interaction and seeing the patient come along the path and say, okay, I understand better now. I'm willing to do this. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear that you can relate to it, not just the words. And, just again, giving examples of things you've seen in action. I'll also caution you to do spelling and grammar checks on your applications. Have somebody else proofread them. That's really important to do. We've even had our name Toro spelled wrong on applications. So just be careful. Those things do jump out. This honestly, I'm applying to Toro and it's obviously spelled wrong. The reason I want to be an MD, I've had them say attending PA school and helping my community is the reason I want to go into medicine. Well, then are you applying to the PA program or the osteopathic medicine program? I also caution you about using statements that you think are a little flowery and probably not accurate. OMT is the future of medicine. It will replace more conventional medicine. It will never replace conventional medicine. OMT augments conventional medicine. And saying it the way this was said, and this is a direct quote from an application, makes me as a DO feel like you don't really understand, and our faculty would feel that way. You don't want to be a DO just so that you can learn OMT. DOs are not always holistic. MDs are not always not holistic. So I don't like it when people make statements. I will tell you a true story. I interviewed with one of my MD counterparts here on campus last semester, and the student literally said, well, DOs are always holistic and they care more about the patients. And I thought, do you not see my colleague's name who's in this Zoom room with you that says MD? That's a little rude. And so just be careful. Don't make generalized statements that are not necessarily true. No one thinks those things are true. Make sure when you do an interview, even on Zoom, please dress professionally. Make sure you have a nice shirt on and a tie, or even your suit jacket. I mean, you're right. I don't know if you're wearing shorts and flip-flops. It doesn't matter. I just need to see what's showing on the Zoom camera. But engage even with the camera. Make eye contact. Smile. I'm going to laughingly say, try not to be too nervous. I get it. This is one of the most important events that are happening in your life. It's your med school interview. You don't get to pursue your passion without this interview. So you're going to be nervous. But do the best you can not to fidget, not to look around. My goodness, don't pick up your cell phone and start scrolling. And I know you're all kind of thinking she didn't just say that, but yes, it's happened. Don't read directly off your other monitor that's next to you because you don't think you can remember your answers. It's one thing to glance at a few keywords on something, but don't get caught reading it. I'll also tell you to listen to the question. We often see students, they sort of have in their mind, I'm going to get asked these questions, and these are the answers I want to give. And then we ask the question, and maybe it's a little different. And so you answer the question you're convinced I was going to ask, and not the one I actually asked. So listen to those questions. If you're not sure, you can ask for it to be repeated. If you need a moment to gather your thoughts, you can say so. I've had that happen many times. Oh, Dr. Wagner, I never thought about that question. Can I have a moment to gather my thoughts? Sure you can. I appreciate your honesty. I always say be prepared, do your homework, know what osteopathic medicine is, know about Touro University, California, know about TUCOM. And the last piece of advice I'll have here, have a question or two in your pocket so that when we get to the do you have any questions for us phase, you're asking us questions serves two things. One, it helps to answer your questions, but it also helps us get to know you a little more. We get to see how you're thinking. What were you worried about? And that gives us another window of insight into our relationship with you as we get to meet you in this limited time frame. When you're prepping for an interview, think about your hobbies, the things you do for extracurriculars, and how did they influence your life? How will they make you better as a physician? Don't just talk about being a student. We want to know you. Are you a good fit for our university? Are you a good fit to be an osteopathic physician? Excuse me. If you've done research, can you discuss how your research will lead you to success in your career as an osteopathic physician? There have been times we've asked someone to tell us about some research that they've documented in their application, and then they can't explain it because it turns out they were a fourth researcher on the project, and they really don't know about it. So remember, if you're going to put it on your application, you need to be able to talk about it. If there's a past challenge and you're asked to tell us about one and how you overcame it or how you'll avoid it in the future, have one in your back pocket that you're willing to share. We've asked questions such as, if you could change anything in history, what would you change and why? Right? We're just trying to get to know you, or who is someone in history or a mentor, and how have they influenced you to become an osteopathic physician? And so those are some of the things you might get asked that are important to think about. Are we okay so far? Again, feel free to raise your hand if you need anything. For me, this page is probably one of the most important things I want to share with you. Growth mindset. This is the key to being a successful osteopathic medical student. In a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love of learning and resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. Physicians are successful when they understand that they are lifelong learners and they constantly want to learn more, whether that be from reading or going to conferences or talking to a patient or talking to a colleague or teaching. I learn things whenever I prep a lecture. Oh, I didn't know they changed that. Okay, good to know. And I learned something new. So being able to have that growth mindset at all times is important. You also have to learn to be a self-directed learner. A lot of college and undergraduate training is very directed. Medical school can't be. It is described as drinking from a fire hose, because it sort of is. And if you can't figure out how to look things up, oh man, I heard them say that and I still don't get it, then you have to be self-directed enough to go find out how you're going to learn it. Are you going to go meet with a faculty member? Are you going to go talk to your team-based learning group and see if somebody there can work with you? But you need to be committed to learning, even when you're not always directed to do so. So when you get to clinical rotations, if you saw a patient with a disease that you vaguely remember from the first 2 years, but you really don't remember a lot about the treatment, you don't just ask the faculty, the attending physician to give you the answers. You go look it up and come back the next day with a question. I went home and was reading about this Dr. So-and-so because I couldn't remember everything. And I guess I'm still confused because what I read said we should do this work, the workup is this way, but you didn't do it that way. Can you help me understand what's different about this patient? Those are the things that are really key. I can't stress professionalism enough in action, word, and deed. I feel like we're all going to put up our little Boy Scout and Girl Scout sign and take our pledge, but professionalism is key. I heard a great thing this morning from one of my peers. Professionalism builds trust. Can you think of anything you want to have more with a patient than to have their trust? So remember that professionalism is key. And of course, empathy. Make sure you know what that means and how to define it. And more important, how to have empathy for your patients. I had the rest of the slide deck. I want to pause. This was designed if people wanted to kind of see a little bit of something we're doing in the school, but I don't know that you need that. I think I want to give you a chance to ask me lots of questions and ask Lynn some questions and get your questions answered. And if we have time, we can go back to this, but I'm going to pause here because I'd like to give you a chance to ask questions about Toro, ask questions about applications, interviews. Tell me what it is you want to know. So I will stop sharing for a moment and open it up to all of you. What kind of questions do you have? What kind of things do you want to know about? Because you probably aren't all that interested in learning about what the students are going to do in class right now today. Does anybody have anything?
What makes an applicant stand out during an interview?
What makes an applicant stand out during an interview? Engagement, smile, friendly. You've done your homework. You know what a DO is. I'm not asking you to know what a DO is based on how I experienced being a DO. I've been a DO for a lot of years, but I am asking you to know what a DO does. An interest in the university. So being able to say, I was looking at the activities they have at Toro. How often does your mobile diabetes unit go out into the community? That's something I'm very interested in, and I'd love to participate in that. So understanding where it is you're applying to. Yes, you're very familiar with this geographic area because you're at Davis and we're neighbors. But you can envision, let's say it was somebody from Connecticut who doesn't know California. I'd like to think they researched Northern California and that they researched Vallejo and Mare Island and what we have to offer. So being prepared for your interview and showing some knowledge would be of the questions you might want to ask are really important.
Okay, another question is, what would you say the biggest challenge a student faces when they get into medical school?
Time management, flexibility, and imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. But let's start with time management. Everyone has developed a way of studying, and undergraduate's very different. As I said, in medical school, there's self-directed learning, and time management is huge. So at Toro, you're juggling 3 courses from the very first day of classes. You're juggling fundamentals, foundations of osteopathic medicine. You're juggling osteopathic doctoring, and you're juggling osteopathic philosophies in practice, OPP. And you've got 3 simultaneous courses. One is clearly heavier weighted, but all 3 must be passed to move forward. So understanding what each one is designed to do, understanding how they connect and how they're different, and what you have to do to keep up. So time management is huge. The reason I add flexibility to that is studying medicine is different. It is not going to primarily be about memorization. There will be pieces. You will memorize bugs and drugs. You will memorize microbiology and pharmacology because that's just the way you do it. But you still have to be able to apply that to this specific patient or that specific thing. And so you have to learn how to do application. And that's where your osteopathic doctoring and your osteopathic principles in practice course come in, because they're going to expect you to learn things and apply it. And so there's more to it. You may not ever study exactly the same way again. And you may have to change how you study from professor to professor, from course to course. And so that flexibility to recognize, okay, well, that's what I did last time. That didn't work as great as I would like it to. What can I do different this time? And the reason I say imposter syndrome is right now, anybody applying to medical school is at the top of their class. But when you get here, you're one of 135 students who are all at the top of their class. And if you turn out to be somebody who's now not at the top of your class, you may start some self-doubt, some questions. If we choose a student to join us here at Toro, we are committed to your success. And we believe that we need to work with you for that. So it's asking for help and recognizing the challenges. And we have lots of resources on campus. Every student is assigned a faculty mentor, as well as the fact that many of them have additional faculty members they've used as a mentor. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, another one is, what are some characteristics and traits students express and make them a great candidate for Toro?
I will answer. I'm going to go back to Lynn. You said we don't have an upcoming open house scheduled. I'm actually going to tell you something you don't know, Lynn. We actually do have an open house coming up. It is going to be in November, and it is going to be in person. It'll be on a Sunday. So one thing unique about Toro is we are a Jewish university, and so we don't do things on Saturdays. We do them on Sundays. So there will be something coming up in November for the College of Osteopathic Medicine, and I'm sure that Manisha will be sent information on it. So she'll be able to share all that with you. But I want to say it's November 10th, but don't quote me because I'm not positive. But yes, there is an open house coming because I'm on the open house committee. So I know that it's coming. So again, the question, Lynn, I'm going to apologize, but I wanted to answer that while I was seeing it.
I'm trying to find it now.
Express that make them a great candidate.
Yeah.
A desire to work and follow our mission. So again, in that doing your homework and being prepared, read our mission and value statements. We are committed to social justice. We are committed to underserved communities, being able to think about experiences you've had with those groups and or things you'd like to do in the future, or how you see our training helping you be that physician of the future who works with those groups are things we like to hear about. Obviously, you need to be academically successful, but we also appreciate honesty and self-awareness. So if you are somebody who struggled in your first 2 years of college and then you've gone on to excel, and maybe you struggled for a health reason or some other personal reason or a mental health reason or whatever it is, you don't have to give us the details of your medical condition or your mental health condition, but to say, I had some problems, I went and sought help and was able to turn myself around, and the way I take care of this in the future is I'm very self-aware, or I do meditation, so it's that idea that you are self-aware and know how to help yourself. Those are traits we look for. I do have a private message that I won't say what's from. What advice would I give students who have a lower GPA than other applicants? If you're on, so we will not interview you if you are under our minimum expectations. That said, I know Davis has programs, but we also have a Master's of
Science and Medical Health Science.
I'm going to get there. Master of Science in Medical Health Sciences, 1-year program. So it's a master's program that is absolutely almost always attended by students who have either a lower GPA or a lower MCAT. And if they maintain a specific grade point average in our master's program, they receive a guaranteed interview. Not a guaranteed acceptance, but a guaranteed interview. That has been hugely successful. I believe our census for students is somewhere around 60. And in the last several years, we probably, we don't tell you how many exactly we're going to accept because we accept qualified folks. But we have not had a number less than about 25 or 30 in the last couple of years. So we accept a fair number of those students. And you're completely taught by the medical school faculty. So it is a tough course, it is a fair course, and it's a very good preparatory course. So I look at post-bac programs, and I specifically look at our Masters of Science and Medical Sciences course.
How is the learning environment at TUC? Does the student have tutoring and support who help them with their learning?
Yeah, so we do have a learning specialist, and we have several counselors.
Yes.
A lot of our classwork is done in team-based learning groups. You're with the same group for 2 years, and then both doctoring and OPP have small group work as well. So you have certain number of students that you work very closely with the whole time. We do have mentoring and tutoring that you're eligible for. We work one-on-one with students. One of the things that we've missed in COVID is that ability to be in our office with our doors open and have students drop by. And this year, unless BA, whatever our variant is now, makes us all insane some way, we expect to be going back to more of that. So we are very available as a faculty, both one-on-one, in group settings. We also have our fellows, our teaching fellows, who work with students one-on-one. So we have a lot of resources. Now, please remember, we are a smaller private school. We are not a UC school.
Right.
We don't have quite the resources they have. But we have a lot, and I feel like we support our students very well. Could we do better? I think everybody, no matter how much money you do or don't have, could do better. But we do very well for what we have. And to Lynn's comment, interviews are group settings. So there are usually 5 candidates with 2 members of the faculty and a student interviewer. The student interviewer has the same equal weighted vote as the 2 faculty members. One of the 2 faculty members will be on my admissions committee. The other one will be a general member of the faculty. And we try very, very hard to have one be a clinical person whenever possible. Sometimes schedules just are what they are, but whenever possible, we have one of each, or at least somebody, if they're not both, if there's no one clinical, at least one of the people there has been with Toro for a number of years and can speak to a lot of things. It's a day that starts around 9 in the morning, I think, or 8:30 in the morning, and it goes till about 2 in the afternoon. The formal interview piece of it is about an hour and 15 minutes. And the rest is virtual tours, meeting with students, meeting with another faculty member to ask questions before the day ends, messages from the dean, messages from our MPH program, our dual degree programs, global medicine. There's a lot of things that go into the day. Minimum GPA is a question it's 3.0. Oh, that's what I thought. But I want you to please recognize our minimums are not our averages. So I have not seen what our averages are from this incoming class, but from the previous class, I think our GPA is around 3.4 or 3.5.
That's correct.
And our MCAT has been around 5.08 or 5.09.
That's also correct.
So that is where it falls. Okay, there's our minimums, and then there's our averages. But other things make a difference. If you've done things on our campus, if you've taken the chance to come and tour our campus, if you've involved yourself with osteopathic physicians who write you extra letters, we do they call it an osteopathic review of our applicants. So those who may have something on the lower end of our acceptable range, so they meet the minimums, but they're not at our averages. Their applications are reviewed by a member of my committee, and we call it EAM. It's our osteopathic review, and it takes people who have qualities and experiences that make them a good fit for our mission. So maybe it's a lot of osteopathic exposure. Maybe it's they meet the underserved community members or the first in their family to go to college. There's a whole list of things. We use the federal guidelines for that information. And so we do bring people in throughout the interview cycle that are not just close to the average, but people who meet our osteopathic review of candidates. And so that's how we can get we're looking for people who meet our mission. Mm-hmm. Back to the question a while back. The most important thing we're looking for from you is to meet our mission.
Right. Any other questions you guys got? There's quite a few of you in here.
Yeah, I know. There's got to be some.
So there is information on our website for the Masters in Science and Medical Health Sciences. I'll put the website in.
Thank you, Lynn. And it usually fills around early summer. And the reason it fills that way specifically is we want to allow those candidates who maybe weren't going to make it into the comm this year, but really wanted to come here. It allows them to make that choice. So they don't look to fill that super early. They're specifically looking for people who want to come to the comm and maybe are struggling in some way or another. So that's an important part of that. What other questions do you have?
I want to throw in a question that we frequently get asked is about gaining experiences, specifically with trying to see what a DO does and what that looks like. And can you speak a little bit about that?
I can. So there's a few places you can go. We used to have something called the Student Doctor Shadowing Program. It was SH. It was SHA.
With shadow.
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 Right. Yeah, right. And that is, I'm assuming they're going to bring that back. They may have to bring it back with qualifications of vaccines, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And Lynn, we probably should be looking into that for everybody. So that's one option. I would also refer you to OPSC, which is the Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California. They are actually located in Sacramento. They have a mentoring program and they are the state association for osteopathic physicians here in California. And you could reach out to Cassandra at opsc.org, and she can send you a list of mentors that might take students or to shadow and learn about osteopathic medicine as well. So there's a number of ways you can do it. You can email me, Lynn, if you'll put my email in the chat.
Of course.
I have on occasion met with individuals who have one-on-one questions and want to spend some time talking to me and go through things. I'll ask for a few weeks before you reach out to me because it's the beginning of the semester and I need to get everybody rolling, but happy to meet as well. I am not in Sacramento. I am in Vallejo, but our OPSC headquarters is in Sacramento. What do I mean by coming to the con? So some people come and tour the college. They come in and get a tour of the campus. Those can be arranged. And again, we're going to have an open house at some point in November, which will be open to both people who've already been accepted if they want to come see the campus because we're staying with virtual interviews. Some people may say, why are you staying with a virtual interview? It actually allows for an increase in diversity. When candidates don't have to spend airfare and hotel and all the travel, it's a very big, no, that's not right. I'll fix it. You're combining my old one and my new one.
Oops, and I spelled Turo wrong.
That's all right. Oh, man.
There it is.
There you go. So, we're staying on Zoom for that reason. It has really helped us increase diversity of applicants, and it has saved students a lot of money. So our open house will be focused on both people who've already been accepted and want to see the campus that they've chosen to come to, as well as future students. What are some few reasons I chose to be an osteopathic physician? So here's the interesting thing. I'm from the East Coast originally, South Jersey, Philadelphia area. And you all may know that that's a medical school haven on the East Coast, the Mid-Atlantic states. All of my family doctors growing up were DOs. My father was in pharmaceutical sales. And so I think all of our family friends were DOs or MDs or DOs. They were doctors. I loved the care I got. I loved what I saw. I loved how my physicians worked with our family. I applied to all of the MD schools within a 50 or 75 mile radius of my home and all of the DO schools across the country, which I don't know that anybody told me to do that or anybody said, hey, academically, that might be a better way for you to go or because you think you want family medicine. I don't know that anybody gave me that advice. I just know it's what I did. So I'm sure somebody back then did. I don't remember. I have to confess. But it was clear to me that I wanted to be a DO. And to tell you how clear it was, I was actually accepted in a foreign country where I would have been an MD. And I was there for 3 months when I got accepted into DO school as an alternate and came back and started over because that's how badly I wanted to be a DO. awagner3@toro.edu is my email, Zarina.
Yeah, I just put it back in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Did that answer your questions as to why I chose it? I am extremely osteopathic. You can see that I'm an older physician. I have some physical limitations on how much OMT I can do, but I treat my colleagues who are specialists in NMM or OMM, just as I use a cardiologist or a pulmonologist or a hematologist. I have patients who are referred to my colleagues who are specialists in this for care. So I am extremely osteopathic. I do some limited OMT myself, and I refer them to specialists when they need significant OMT in addition.
Great.
Other question? You haven't really asked much about the way school is right now. We are definitely a hybrid. There are some, there's not been a ton of silver linings out of COVID, but one of the things that came out of COVID for us is we were pretty much either live lectures or self-study. We didn't do anything virtual. We didn't stream lectures. We didn't do a lot of Zoom sessions. And we have really learned to do that, obviously, because of COVID. And there are some things that are staying Zoom, and there are some things that are going to go back to being live. So we're now going to have a real mix of educational opportunities and experiences available. What would I recommend for clinical experiences? It is hard to volunteer. You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, the way these COVID variants keep coming back, just when you think the doors are open, they're mousing them down. I would tell you that sometimes hospital volunteering isn't going to get you in because hospitals are being extremely careful. But you might find individual physicians who would take a student. If you're curious as to what makes a physician nervous about having a shadowing student, most physicians hate writing letters of recommendation. And that is the number one reason a physician will turn people down, is they don't want to have to write a letter. So if you go into it and just say, I'm looking for the experience, if at the end of it you feel comfortable writing me a letter, I will likely ask you. But if you would rather not, I understand. You may find some other doors open to you. Some physicians are just not comfortable writing letters of recommendation. And you really don't want a letter from someone who's not comfortable. Because what they write is that nice one paragraph vanilla letter that says, they have a really good work ethic and my patients and staff love them and they'll be a great doctor, which tells me nothing, right? I want to hear about something they did with you, something they saw with you, something you discussed. So if a doctor is hesitant about writing you a letter, you can always say to them, is it still okay if I list you as somebody I shadowed and I talk about some of my experiences as long as I don't reveal your patient names and breach HIPAA? They're going to be fine with that, and that's really what I want to hear. I am board certified in family medicine. No, religion. So we are a faith-based institution, but you do not have to be Jewish to come here. What are good things that students like to know? I'll tell you the fun stuff the students like out of going to a Jewish institution. School closes at 3 o'clock every Friday. As someone who is Jewish, I did not know how many holidays I had coming to me that I wasn't taking my entire life. There are a ton of Jewish holidays. And because of the way our school works, we get lots of those off. And for the most part, that's a perk. On the other hand, if you're familiar at all with the Jewish religion, the Jewish high holy days, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Simchas Torah, which are 4 holidays that sort of go over about a 3 to 4 week period, they all go over a 3 to 4 week period back-to-back weeks in the fall. When we're lucky and some of the days of the holiday fall on the weekends, we're lucky. When they all fall on weekdays, we still have 20 weeks to give you a curriculum. And we just lost 5 or 6 days, 8 days, whatever it is, 10 days between no testing and no school. And we still have to get the same curriculum in. So while it's nice for the extra days off and students enjoy that, unless you are an observant Jew, most of the time you stay home and study because you've got things coming up when you come back. So there's pros and cons to any, and that would be that way no matter what the religious base is, right? If there were extra days off because of the faith, you're going to still have to make that work up. It still has to get done. So there are pros and cons, but I think being a faith-based institution allows us to have certain morals and values, to really look at social justice. We have a campus rabbi. Our food on our campus is kosher. So there are certain, like you can't bring, if I'm going into the food line to buy lunch, I can't carry my Sparklets bottle. I can't carry it into the cafeteria, into the food line because it's kosher in there. And even though this would be considered a kosher thing, it's not their kosher, in other words, they didn't bless it. So I can buy a bottle of water in there that looks just like this, but I can't take mine in. There are certain laws that they follow. Those you pick up along the way. They're not a big deal. So no, there's nothing you need to know except to know that a faith-based institution allows you that bandwidth, and I think is a little more understanding and accepting of people with whatever their needs are. So I think it gives us an extra perk.
Can I throw in another question?
Absolutely.
I know you touched upon it, but can you speak to student life, student opportunities, the very things students can do as a student there.
Absolutely. So we have, believe it or not, there's over 100 clubs that are available. No one should join anywhere near that many. We have certain ones that are always big and active. There's, of course, our Student Government Association. We have a student run. So we have the student government for the university, and then we have the ComSec, which is the College Osteopathic Medicine Student Governance. We also have a student-run free clinic that is interprofessional with the College of Pharmacy, College of Nursing, and PA school. And its officers are interprofessional as well, but often COM students are part of the board for the student-run free clinic. We have a diabetes mobile unit that goes out into the community. Many of the clubs do community events now that COVID has lifted a little bit. We have always been on the front lines first doing COVID testing and then giving COVID vaccines. And those vaccine clinics are still happening on a regular basis and are manned by Toro students many times with our faculty involved in being the preceptors. Other large clubs include the Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California Club. They're very active. Their student group, actually, the president actually is a voting member of the OPSC Parent Organization's Board of Directors. There are 3 DO schools in California, and each school has one voting member on the actual board of directors. And that got negotiated by people like me who've been active in the state organization and helped convince them for the need to have student involvement. ACOFP, which is the Family Practice Organization, they're very involved in the community. They work with our Faith Food Fridays Food Bank, among many other things. We have a Rainbow Health Coalition. We have a White Coat for Black Lives organization. I'm trying to think of all the ones we have. I can't even, in addition to all the specialty things, the internal medicine interest group, the ER interest group, the surgical interest groups. We have all of those things. Students are also welcome to participate in the various parent chapters of the organizations they may be interested in. Many of our students present at conferences. Within the American Osteopathic Association, there's a specific organization called Biome. We have had more award-winning posters and projects than any other osteopathic school here at Toro. So we do a lot of that type of research, and our students present every year and usually rank in the top, have at least one person in the top 3 winners. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of awards for posters and research and abstracts. And students can participate in any of the research projects that are going on campus. We have a world-renowned bench researcher in metabolism, or 2 of them now, in metabolism with CDC grants, NIH grants rather. We also have a clinical diabetologist who does international travel speaking on diabetes, and we do a lot of clinical research on diabetes as well as other research. We have HIV drug research, we have other metabolism research. We also do osteopathic manipulative medicine research. So we have a lot of that going on.
If for whatever reason your agency.
Are there any aspects of Toro the students have voiced concern about, and have they been addressed? Health shortages. So students are an active member of just about every organization on our campus. They are not a member of the Student Promotions Committee. I think that's an obvious why. They do not serve in our academic leadership team with the dean. That's your academic, your faculty leadership. That said, they are on every other, I can't think of any other committee they're not on. Their concerns are frequently addressed. I run the curriculum committee as part of academic affairs. We have 2 student members from each class available on that committee at any time, and they give reports and make requests and tell us what's going on and what the students are needing and asking. The fellows that are there are also students. We also have a group called the New Horizons Committee, which is there to specifically take student concerns and bring them back to the dean, and the dean serves on that. So student voice is heard loud and clear. Changes are made to the best of our ability to comply with student needs. Sometimes the student requests are not something we can do. Students obviously can't completely dictate what's in the curriculum. They can ask questions and make suggestions, and those are heard. And so there's frequent town halls. I can't even begin to tell you how much student participation we have. Like I said, for the admissions committee, we have a VP of admissions. The current one is Sally Kanyume. She holds a voting position on the committee. Her vote is equal to everybody else's vote when we vote in the committee. And every interview has a student in the session, and their vote is equal to the 2 faculty members in the group. So it's not.
I do remember our VP Sally mentioning, for instance, one of the student government members going to the committee, trying to shorten a lecture that was pre-testing. So the lecture was like 5 hours long, and they said it was too long. Can we just do it in 3? And yes, that was made happen by the committee.
When we can, we do. We take student input regarding, the way things are done. The students think there's too much going on. And then sometimes you have to take a step back and read the comments, because you can get somebody who writes an isolated comment like, I think there's busy work here, and they're going to call learning how to write a SOAP note for a patient's chart busy work. And I'm going to tell you that you're going to do that for the rest of your life as a physician, and that's not busy work. That's a skill you need to master. So sorry, you're going to have to write SOAP notes, because I think there's a legitimate reason for having someone do the skills that they need to have as a physician. So, every once in a while we don't all agree, but when the students wanted to see a bigger focus on social justice, we created a marginalized communities subcommittee of the curriculum committee, and they have actually performed curricular reviews. They do it each year. They pick a course or 2 to do a curricular review on. They choose to do that. This is not something they have to do. They choose to do it. We're actually trying to get them more faculty help for it. And then they bring that information back to the course so that the faculty can start looking at language or photos or whatever they need to do to make this appear to address all skin colors or all ethnic groups or all LGBTQ groups, just so that we have everything covered. So I think the students have a huge amount of input. Does that help answer your question, Eugene? All right.
Anybody else?
I will tell you that you won't find a busier campus with things to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably a big piece of advice I end up giving to my individual mentees is, I think you need to take a step back. Let's look at everything you signed up to do. Because remember, your number 1 priority is to be a successful osteopathic medical student. Everything else needs to come after that. And so sometimes students get really excited and they get themselves on 4 or 5 different boards, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And, then it falls to the mentor to say, come back, let's take a step back. I think you need to look at this a little differently. We recognize everyone's an adult learner and can make their own choices, but if your academics start being affected negatively, then it's we have to talk to you about it. We don't force people. And what percentage of applicants are local? Local as in the Bay Area or local as in California? Or do you, Bay Area? Are we somewhere around 35, 40% are Bay Area, Lynn?
I'm sorry, repeat the question. I didn't
Our
even
class,
hear.
aren't we around 30 or 45% are Bay Area?
Yeah.
Yeah, just under half is Bay Area. And when
Yeah.
you take the rest of California in, you're probably up around 80%.
Yeah.
And not because we're choosing to choose Californians. That's who applies to us.
No, I'm amazed that, like I said, I just started processing, and I would say 90% of these applicants coming in are from California, from NorCal to SoCal. And then you've got, Florida and Virginia and Miami.
Yeah, we don't see as much from the Midwest. It's interesting. We do
Yeah.
get a few from the Midwest, but it's almost like we get here and then we get all the way back east. And we don't get as many, it's like somebody put a bridge over the country and just came from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yeah, Michigan, Missouri, places like that. You get a few here and there.
Mattering here and there, yeah. It's kind of an interesting thing to see, because you would think it would just be across the whole country, but it's not. We don't see a lot in the middle of the country. Some South, some East Coast, primary California.
I'm not sure if this is a question y'all can answer, but something we're frequently asked is, what's the difference between Thoreau, California, Thoreau, Nevada, and Thoreau, New York?
Okay, so we are all part of the Touro University system, TCUS, which is based in New York. is an international organization. They have a variety of undergraduate and graduate professional schools, including law schools, schools of religion, a worldwide university based in Los Angeles that is strictly an online university. So it's a large conglomerate of educational resources. With regards to osteopathic medicine, Touro, Nevada is our sister school within COCO, which is the osteopathic accrediting bodies. We have actually been asked by WASP, which is the Western States accrediting, to at some point be separate. But from a COCA perspective, we can't separate right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be separate, but not somehow. And I'm not sure of all that. That's above my pay grade. But they are a separate medical school. We do work with them. We talk to them. When we're looking for ideas on how to deal with things, when they're looking for ideas on how to deal with things, our faculties all speak to each other. When we're doing faculty developments through special courses, we often partner with them to get resources from both schools so the faculty can get some special courses to help them develop their teaching skills, which we've done for the last several years and are going to continue to do. So we are sister schools, but we are separate. And it's not like you could go to Touro, Nevada for a year and then transfer here. The curriculum is different enough that it wouldn't happen. In New York, there are 2 osteopathic schools in Harlem and one in Middletown, New York, and they are sister schools, but they are not really related to us. I mean, we're all part of that same umbrella family, but they are separate institutions. Then, of course, New York Medical, which is an allopathic institution, is located in New York and is also part of Touro. And Touro is in the process of developing an osteopathic medical school in Montana, which I think is actually going to be linked to the New York school somehow. I'm not sure how all that math is figured out. But each school right now is an individual school. So it's not like you apply to one and get all of them. Each one is a separate application. Does that make sense? Anybody else?
Any other questions? This is the opportunity for you to speak with both admissions and somebody who is an osteopathic physician. And they've generously given time out of their day and while sick. So any other questions that you might have as you consider your own future careers, or if you're applicants, this is the time to ask. We'll just give it a...
What led me to work at Touro? Oh my goodness, that's an interesting question, Eugene. So many years ago, I had a private practice. I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was very active in the American College of Osteopathic Family Physicians. In 1999, I was at a point in my career that I was now ready to start getting active politically. I'd paid off some of my loans. I was successful. I had my own practice. It was time to do that. And a couple of my peers were officers in the National ACFP. And so they started reaching out and drawing me into committees and that sort of thing. And that's sort of how it works in osteopathic medicine. We call our friends and we arm twist them a little bit now and again. And the physician in particular was a guy named Joseph McNerney, and he was the senior associate dean here at Touro, California. There was no Touro, Nevada. There were no Touro, New Yorks. It was just Touro, California. In 99, it just was getting started. And he called me up and said, hey, would you take some students? And I said, sure. And we went from taking some students to developing an entire teaching program at a real small community hospital in North Las Vegas that then developed some residency programs. And then eventually that hospital was closed down and we moved it to another hospital, and Touro, Nevada actually opened and took over those things. So I was affiliated with them when they were first opened. I spent about 10 years doing some occupational medicine and working on what I'll call the business side of medicine, where I ran 35 clinics and all the physicians, nurse practitioners, and PAs therein. And they had a corporate exchange and corporate buyout, and my position was eliminated. And I was at a point in my career where I thought, I think maybe teaching is a good way to go. I'm ready to make that big change. My husband and I lived in SoCal. And so Touro was my first choice, though I lived and was friends with then deans at Western, and I lived down closer to that. I made a choice to come up here and come back into teaching because I had this relationship from earlier when I was an adjunct faculty. And so I've been here full time now since 2013. What resources they have for low-income students? What about mental health? We do have mental health on campus. I would say what I tell students is you are required to buy health insurance to be a student here. And I tell people if you need more than our folks can offer, you should always go to your primary care doctor and get referred. Many of our students are part of the Medi-Cal system and get their medical care that way in order to get low to no cost medical care. We don't have a lot of scholarships. We are, like I said, we're a small private institution. We have a few. We do the best we can to make sure we provide lots of resources for students. Obviously I can't know what every student deals with. There are people I've known about that have had issues. Not too long ago, I had a student who was having an eye problem and was struggling with not being able to wear contact lenses and couldn't afford glasses. And there was a big rigmarole. And I was able to find that we have an emergency fund for him. And I was able to refer him to the emergency fund. And he was able to then get what he needed through a small gift from the emergency fund so that he could keep going. So those things do happen. Campus life is whatever. So campus life sort of depends on what you want to do with it. There's lots of stuff to do. Many of our students, probably well over half the class, live either on Mare Island, in Vallejo, or Benicia, because we're right here. And they don't have to even cross the bridge for that big toll. There's another small group that's just on the other side of the bridge, though there are some who live as far away as Berkeley in the city. I'm not sure why they want those long commutes when they have all the studying to do. And there are some who have chosen to commute out from Sacramento. I just don't know that I personally understand a long commute because you burn all those hours a day that you could be studying. But there's always things to do on campus now that COVID has lifted somewhat. But if we learned nothing a few years ago, we learned to be subject to change. Even our clubs became expert at doing Zoom events and bringing in speakers from all over to speak because they could do it on Zoom. So events where maybe a national organization's president is from Louisiana, they can do a Zoom event with us, but they might not have been able to get away from their practice to fly to Northern California and do it in person. So we've squeezed some pretty sweet lemonade from those lemons. And I feel like we've done a good job of it. Did that answer your question, Megan? No problem. If you have more, you're welcome to contact me directly. You're welcome to contact Lynn directly. We will answer your questions to the best of our ability and as timely as possible. When our open house happens, we will certainly let Manisha know so that she can share it with you. And we look forward to hopefully seeing your applications or hearing from you in the near future.
All right, thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
For being here today. We really appreciate taking time out of your day. I know the students got a lot. I always learn something new. I'm excited about the open house and having people back on campus again. So
yeah, we are too. And Manisha, I would suspect that if you reached out to Lynn, you could get your own tour if you wanted one. Mm-hmm. I would suspect that you could get an invitation. Am I right, Lynn? She could probably get an invitation.
Sure. Shoot me an email. You've got my email address.
Yeah, you could get yourself an invitation and you could probably even bring a few students with you if you wanted to.
Yeah, we're going to get past orientation though, because
yeah, that was my only request is that you wait.
Yeah, past orientation. Yeah.
But they can
Donna's pre-health conferences in October. My brain is going to be pre-health conference for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So, but historically, we did our field trips in person. So we would take van loads of students to local medical schools up through the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So we've been virtual the last two, and this is the third year just because of just precautions.
Right. Yeah.
We're hoping, one upcoming summer we can start those in-person field trips again.
Yeah, we hope so too. I mean, we've had some of the same issues, right? It's and then again, there's the perks, right? Knowing that Zoom interviews, while they lose one thing, they lose that ability to come see the campus or for the candidates to walk into a classroom and see see a lab happening. Look at the number of applicants we can bring in from all over the country to interview because they don't have to travel. So, there's an offset and we just are still figuring out our happy medium.
Yeah, I know I've heard when I was at NAF, some schools doing virtual interviews, but a in-person second visit.
Exactly.
As a
That's what
Right.
we're
Yeah,
looking at
that
that.
new language we're starting to use since COVID.
Well, and right now, the residencies, as far as we know, most of the residencies intend to stay virtual for some of the same reasons, because it's easier to get students off of a rotation for a day when they just do it on Zoom than when they actually come. And there's probably for residencies a cost savings, because when you go there, they wine and dine you, right? This is a marketing thing for them. So there's probably a bit of a cost savings.
Well, thank you so much for
You're
being
welcome.
here today. We always appreciate you from Thoreau. Have a wonderful day and feel better sooner.
Oh, thank you very much. If you could have seen me 10 days ago, you would realize I am
Yeah.
actually doing very well. But it's that cough. It'll get better. Next time you all see me, I won't be coughing.
All right. Goodbye,
so much.
everyone.
Take
Thanks
care,
for the
everyone.
time. Bye-bye.